Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Dyad? Well, this is by a company whose name is unpronounceable because they made it out of 2 square brackets. So 2 Square Bracket Games Incorporated, which consists of about 6 people, came up with Dyad, which is described by many as a tunnel racer. Or indeed, a mind-bending psychedelic sensory overload. An audio-visual tube creating a harmonic synthesis of color and sound. Yes, that. Okay. So what's it all about? Well, the point is to get through the level as fast as possible while completing various objectives which are determined to you by the actual game. As you can see, there's quite a lot of stuff here. A lot of this is actually locked. There appears to be an infinite mode there as well. We've got a configuration, see what's going on here. This is not mouse-driven in any respect, I might add. So there's not a lot of options, really. You can change ultra textures and ultra vertices around here. You can turn your UI on or off and fiddle with your volume. Full screen off or on. It defaults to 720p in a window as well. That's easily changed, though. You just need to realize where this menu is. It's one of those games where it kind of immediately starts you into it, and it's like, oh, no, I want to change this. I don't want to play this in a window. Now, you have the ability to configure a gamepad, but you don't have the ability, it would appear, to rebind your keys. Now, there aren't a lot of keys for this game, but it would be nice to be able to rebind them regardless, so there is a little bit of lacking there. There also doesn't seem to be much of an option to sort of turn down the intensity of the color that's going to be thrown at you. Ultra textures and ultra vertices go some way in that regard, but there is not a huge amount of customization there. It's kind of unfortunate. Alright, so let's go in then, shall we? I'm a few levels in, and we'll show you exactly what's going on here. Let's try Magic Circle. Now, this is asking us to graze as many enemies as possible. Alright. Now, there are also a couple of other modes available. If I go back here, I go to Danger, where I was able to 3-star that one. You can see there's a Trophy mode and a Remix mode. With Remix mode, you can change out a whole bunch of different stuff. You can actually wash it out, which is quite nice. That's something that I feel might end up being very useful there indeed. We might mess with that a little bit later. Oh, no. Whoops. Wrong button. Let's try that again. C is to go back, because, you know, mice aren't used in the 21st century. Magic Circle. Let's go and give this one a try. So, graze as many enemies as possible. Alright, let's give it a shot. Hooking enemies creates a grazing circle around them. So you have to run through the grazing circle, but not actually run through the enemy, because the enemy itself will do damage to you. So you might be getting a little bit of a Tempest 2000 vibe from this tunnel. I certainly don't blame you there. Not a game that I personally enjoy, but certainly one that I respect the existence of. Alright, so that creates that... Let's see. Alright, so that's the graze. Alright, that makes sense. Now, this game also allows you to gain a speed boost from combining 2 of the same color. Now, if we add grazing in, it makes it extremely difficult to actually do that properly. As you can see, because you've got to try and combo it, and then you've got to worry about getting this right, and then combo ahead of you, and avoid comboing 2 things of different colors together, because otherwise you won't get the speed boost, and at that point, your mind bloody melts. And this game is one of those games which is all really about sensory overload, and my god, does it succeed in that regard. If I'm totally honest, the game actually gives me eye strain. There is so much stuff being thrown at you, and so much color and sensory bombardment going on. That was terrible, by the way. It ends up being, like, unpleasant to play for me. Alright, I guess we've got another little mechanic that's being put in here. Each enemy you graze gives you energy. Spend the energy on a lance shot. Lancing turns you into a weapon, killing all enemies in your path, but doesn't last very long. Okay, fair enough, that makes sense. Each full energy bar gives you 1 lance shot. Alright, that's cool. So it's gradually introducing mechanics. The first few levels were really to get you used to the idea of comboing 2 colors together and avoiding running into enemies while attempting to increase your speed. You would be surprised how tricky it actually is to keep your speed up in this game. You don't really get a lot of time to match the colors together. You really don't. So there we go. Match a few together here. Alright, apparently we have a lance ready here, so let's lance our way through there. There we go. That seems to work pretty well, and we can do another lance. I guess we can grab that as well. And then we've got to get some energy. It's like, well, where am I going to get the energy from? Okay, there's a match. There we go. Match 2 of those together. Get the graze. I think, actually, if I was quick enough there, I very much could have just gone through the entire thing. There we go. Let's match a couple of those up here as well. It is not an easy game to get right. Like, it really is not. It's got a lot of complex mechanics, but it's also got this whole sensory overload thing going to the point where it's just really difficult to actually keep up with it. Maybe I'm getting old at the age of 28, and I simply cannot handle 50,000 really bright neon colors flying at me while having to consider the notion of grazing and going through these various different hoops, but not actually hitting the center of the hoops, because that will happen if you don't do that. I'm like, what? What is going on? Oh man, you know, some people find these games are really artistically beautiful. The synthesia, or whatever the hell you call it, of visuals and audio, and yeah, I can appreciate that, I suppose, from an artistic standpoint, but from a gameplay standpoint, it's blinding. It is just absolutely blinding. It is a massively trippy experience, but it's not trippy in the way that Rez was. Rez is reasonably easy to keep up with. If you don't know what Rez is, by the way, I'd strongly recommend that you play it, because it is one of the finest examples of combining visuals with audio to make a truly interesting experience. I actually had a great time with that. I was back in university, I had this projector, and it was this crappy 480p projector or whatever I picked up secondhand, and I put Rez on that thing, and I just turned my surround sound up, and I just went through that game, and it was almost a transcendent experience, I suppose, as close as you can really get to that in gaming. It was bizarre. It was really, really crazy, and I can appreciate that. This, on the other hand, I think might be a little much. Like, it is so much color and so much sound, all sort of coming together in a way that is an assault on the senses. And I don't know if an assault on the senses was actually what I was looking for. Maybe it was at some point, but not with this game. Some people, however, are really going to dig that. So, do I have any legitimate complaints that are not just simply subjective? Alright, one thing I would say about it is I have a feeling it would have worked better with a mouse and not the keyboard. It might work reasonably well with the gamepad. The main problem with doing it with the keyboard is that the keyboard is inherently quite imprecise, and considering the speed that you actually have to go, it more often than not you'll actually slightly miss the targets simply because you're just sort of trying to adjust the keyboard with little taps left and right, which, you know, this is not Trackmania. It doesn't seem to work all that well. I have a feeling it would work either better with an analog stick or better with a mouse. The mouse is not an option in this game. It doesn't allow you to rebind in that respect, so I guess that's not really too much of an option for most people, unfortunately. Maybe a controller is better, but it might even end up being worse. It's hard to say, really. Let's power our way through here. There we go. Lance once again. It's a very interesting concept for a game. It's fairly simple, but the mechanics do have some depth and skill involved in it. Is it the kind of game that you would pay $15 your original equivalent for, though? That's really the question. We're talking about a game that is £10.79, €13.49 right now. This is the price that when it's 10% off, by the way, since it's just come out. On what is essentially a score attack game, and a game which will probably burn out your retinas. It's not my kind of game. I can immediately identify that. I can appreciate what it is just from kind of an outsider perspective of saying, hey, isn't this cool? But it does have some problems. It's also got some frame rate issues as well. A game like this, you'd actually want to play as smooth as possible, but I have this, which is actually a fairly simplistic looking game, at times dipping below 50, which means that the controls become a little bit harder. It's not so good. I don't have VSync on, so that game actually shouldn't be running that slowly. There's nothing really to make it run that way, but it is. So that's certainly something to consider. Alright, now I'm interested to know what's going on with this remix idea. Let's go back to Danger, and let's remix this thing. What happens if I wash out the colors? Let's put a bunch of really interesting options on. Speed equals music. Triggers equals music. There we go, let's give this a try. Alright, so I'm washing the game out right now just to see if this actually... Whoa, what the... Alright, so... Your speed sort of affects the music here. Okay, I think I made it horribly worse. God damn it, what the hell is happening? These crazy distortions that are going on here. It's nice to have that option, but it's getting to... Beat Hazard Ultra level of making your eyes bleed. Oh, wow. What the hell is happening? Oh, Jesus. Well, you know, it's a score attack game. It's an impressive visual display, but it's the kind of thing that I would prefer to have as a screensaver more so than anything else. I always find that when I'm dealing with a game that has obvious artistic merit, then I'm too stupid to appreciate it, because I'm not really a person that appreciates artistic merit in games. I'm too mechanical for that. I'm probably just a horrible gamer, but at the end, yeah, that blur is actually horrible. You can't see past it. You should never turn that on. What the hell am I doing? Anyway, it's like, I hate to say that the game's not for me, because it's obvious that there's a lot of effort that's been put into it. There's a lot of content there, a lot of options, remix options, good score attack gameplay, but it is definitely not my kind of game. There's no question about that. It may very well be your kind of game, however, so that's the kind of thing you want to be looking at. I'm kind of surprised that it's $15. I don't personally think that's a lot of money, but I can imagine that a lot of people will. Also, is the game locked up? What the... Huh. Okay. I think I broke it by the looks of it. That's unfortunate. There we go. Okay. We finally got out of that. That was... Hang on, I can't see my craft now. I don't even know what's going on there. It's definitely not my kind of thing, but you don't really watch this series to find out what my kind of thing is. That's not the point. You're supposed to try and figure out, based on what you're seeing, whether or not this is the kind of game for you. And it's certainly quite creative, but it's one of those... I wouldn't even call it a... Maybe I would call it a high-concept indie game that's sort of based on one very specific idea, and the variety comes in the variations of the rule set that it's able to present to you. The whole notion is, ride the tunnel. But here's a bunch of rules that will make riding the tunnel a little bit more challenging. Change things around, just make things a little bit more different. We're gonna tie in the speed of your play to how well you actually do in matching up pairs. But that in itself is actually gonna make the game more difficult, because it's far more difficult to avoid all this stuff. We're gonna present an awful lot of color at you to the point where it, in my opinion, blinds you and actually makes the game difficult to play, which I don't think is necessarily the best of ideas. There are games which certainly suffer from that, and then there are games which actually benefit from it. I never found that Audio Surf really had that problem. I thought it did a pretty good job of distinguishing the blinding neon colors and things like that from the things on the screen which were actually important to successfully playing the game. I'm not sure if Dyad really does that completely, but it may just be my lack of experience with it. One way or the other, it's an interesting looking title, but it's definitely not for me. It's the kind of concept that I would play for a few minutes and then probably just say, you know what, I'm not into it. And I'm just not. I'm sorry. Never ask me about art and games. I can't do it. But if this is the kind of thing that you might dig, then you might want to have a look over on Steam. You will find Dyad available right there for $15 or your regional equivalent, with 10% off in the launch week leading up to May the 1st. My name's been TotalBiscuit, taking a look here at Dyad. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.